Hello, thank you for joining us for this webinar session. Today we are partnering together with Becker, and we will be talking about comfort and security, roller shutter drives with integrated EnOcean technology. So we are really pleased to have Mike Wiegelmann from Becker together with us today. And we will be then diving into the benefits and the solutions offered by Becker this time. As you know, this is part of our webinar series where we try to address the various topics in the building and smart home environment using our technology. So first, I just maybe briefly switch on my camera. So for those who don't know me, my name is Markus Florm. Here I am, Markus Florm. I'm based in our head office in Munich, in Oberhaching near Munich, and I'm running the sales team at the EnOcean for the EMEA team. I switch off my camera now so that we save a little bit of bandwidth and have then everybody can join us for this. So here is a brief agenda on the topics we are going to address. So of course, we first make a little bit an introduction for those who don't know us about EnOcean. I talk a little bit about what does it mean in terms of having a smart home system, what does it mean considering comfort and security in a smart home environment, and then I will hand over to Becker and Tranceiver and to Mike to then talk specifically about this topic around their solution and how they have done this implementation using our technology. And then don't forget, already pencil down your questions. At the end, we will have some Q&A sessions where we will then answer live some of your questions. Okay, so then on the next slide, just briefly, maybe some of you who have followed us for a longer time know this already. So just briefly again, EnOcean, who are we? We are the leader in self-powered IoT solutions. So what we do is we provide energy harvesting components, modules, and products based on standardized wireless protocols. So in this case, this means the sub-gigahertz frequency, which is the EnOcean protocol, which we invented over 20 years ago, but is now an open and international standard. And in that context, sub-gigahertz, what we use is 868 megahertz for Europe, 902 for the US, for example, and 928 for Japan. But we have also added support for other protocols, for other applications, for example, at Zigbee and Bluetooth. In this context, with our activities, we have sold a double-digit million amount of products into the market since 2003. And these products and solutions, of course, delivered by our partners, are now used in over 1 million buildings worldwide. So these are small buildings, big buildings, office buildings, hospitals, so all kind of whatever you can think of in a context of building automation. We do have worldwide activities. So we, as mentioned, are based in Germany, have the team around in Europe, but of course have also an organization in the US and also are covering Far East. Our activities are supported by a strong patent portfolio. We continue, of course, to innovate, and this innovation is supported by this patent portfolio we are showing here. On the next slide here, just briefly, maybe some of you already know, what does it mean, energy harvesting? Basically, we are generating an energy based on using the environment. And in the moment, we do have three main principles. So there is kinetic energy, of course. So there is transforming linear movement into an electrical energy. And this we can, of course, give power to the electronics component. A good example is this kinetic energy harvesting module, which is used by the various switch manufacturers around the world. Then another methodology is, of course, using light, solar energy. In this case, we, of course, talk about indoor light. So the systems are set up in a way that with this little energy you can find in an indoor environment, or easily with 200 lux and more, then you can power the electronics with that energy in order to, for example, measure temperature or presence and so on. And then the last but not least is, of course, using thermal energy. In this case, we take benefit of a temperature difference. So in this case, it's using Peltier elements, and with a delta of typically 4 Kelvin and more, you can also generate electrical energy, which then is stored and then is given also to the electronics. In this case here, an example is heating valves. There is solutions on the markets which are using this approach to generate self-powered heating valves. Since the then the delta in temperature is quite big, then you can even power some stepper motors to open and close the valve. So these are the three main topics, three main possibilities to generate self-powered solutions which don't require any maintenance. So this is the context. What does it mean? Of course, the combination of energy harvesting with wireless communication. Of course, the advantage in a context of a home automation system, and then as I mentioned, we will then hand over this to show you exactly how Becker and Triebe is using this. Then of course, with this approach, you can simplify the cabling. So this reduces cost and complexity. It also reduces the cost for on-site or off-site installation. So you can do a simplified configuration or commissioning, we call it. Then, of course, the solutions can then be operated in combination with maintenance-free and battery-free sensors. Like we said, battery-free switches or PIR sensors, presence detectors, temperature sensors. So all these can, of course, enabled with this approach. It allows you also, of course, in the moment you combine this technology, to have maximum flexibility. So if you want to upgrade or extend the system later, that's very easy to do. And that's a big advantage over, for example, a purely cabled system. In the context of the EnOcean protocol, we, as mentioned, are using sub-gigahertz range. So we are using in Europe, for example, 868 megahertz. And this, in comparison to, for example, 2.4 gigahertz used by Zigbee or Bluetooth, 868 has a longer range. So you can place your sensors at a wider distance. And another advantage is there is less interference, because this frequency is very heavily regulated, for example, by the EU. And of course, then it's really exactly specified how much and how long you can transmit your data. And this, again, is also giving you benefit in how reliable a system is. Then, of course, there is connectivity towards other systems and gateways. And then, of course, with this, you can enable IP connectivity, for example, if you want to transfer the data into the cloud onto the web, of course, if this is a desired function. And then, of course, what does it mean? So we have seen now the advantages, but what does it mean in application if I want to consider as a user, for example, to increase efficiency in my building? Then, of course, the typical applications are controlling lights or controlling shutters. And this is, of course, what we are going to address today, together with Becker, with Mike. And then, of course, if you consider extended functionality, then we are talking about dimming lights. Then, of course, you would integrate weather data. You would, of course, then add additional functionalities where you have lockout protection and stuff like that. Then, of course, when we're talking about increasing security, what does it mean? Then this is typically referred to intrusion protection, so that you, of course, monitor the status of a window or a window handle to make sure and understand if it's open or closed. And then if you want to extend this functionality in terms of security, an advanced function would be to add a time-based scene control to emulate, for example, presence at home, or you would purely add a presence detection function with a PIR sensor. And then also here, last but not least, a typical function to implement comfort is adding remote control functions. So we will also see this in the example from Becker and Triebe. And if you want to extend this feature beyond the typical application environment, then the advanced version would be to enable remote control via an app or a smartphone. Then, of course, then that's connected to a gateway. So just to show you what is possible in terms of adding additional functionality in a home automation or building automation system. And this again reverts back to the fact that you have maximum flexibility in the moment you add radio transmission. So this brings me to my introduction. I will then now hand over to Mike from Becker, and a pleasure to welcome him. And over to you, Mike, for your presentation.
Yes, very nice. Good morning to everyone from me as well. My name is Mike Wiegelmann. I am a co-owner and head of the training department at Becker Antriebe in Germany. Imagine myself as kind of the Henning Meyer of Becker. And thank you very much for your kind introduction, Marcus. I will also switch off my camera in a few moments to save bandwidth, and you can completely focus on the presentation. as Marcus already stated, please write down your questions. There will be a Q&A session at the end to address everything that's remained unclear, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. Okay, I will now turn off my camera and go ahead with my presentation. First of all, who is Becker? We are a company founded in 1921, based in the central part of Germany, in Hessen, for those of you who know what I'm talking about. The company has been family owned for quite a long time now. My great-grandfather and his brother founded the company, as I mentioned, in 1921. And since that day, it's been in family hands and hopefully will remain for quite a couple of years more. We are currently employing more than 300 people worldwide, the major part, around 220, here in our company center in Sinn. And for quite a long time now, we've been DIN ISO 9001 certified and strive to remain certified at the latest certification process all times. The company is specialized in home and building automation with a main focus on tubular drive systems and also radio receivers and control systems. So now that I've talked a bit about myself and my company, I would love to get a little feedback from you as to which sector you're coming from, if you're working as a system integrator already using EnOcean in your daily work life, you're an equipment manufacturer, also producing your own EnOcean devices, building contractor, an architect, or other, for example, interested end customer. I would love to get your information on that. So we'll just wait for a minute or so, everybody can just click. Thanks, Alex, for starting the query. And just a few more words on the cooperation or our partnership with the EnOcean Alliance. We've been working for quite some time now, mostly with Marcus to develop products for the EnOcean application, and we've been working also quite heavily on the establishment of the roller shutter profile in the EnOcean Alliance world to fulfill the needs that surge from motors that are smarter than just actuators to control them. And today we'll show you the result, and I think it's going to be interesting. Okay, the larger part of you has voted already. Thank you very much, Alex, for the support. Okay, equipment manufacturer, that's interesting and also very good to know. So I can maybe focus a little bit more on those topics during my presentation. Okay, then we'll go on in follow up with the N01 EnOcean tubular drive. This motor is a roller shutter drive for tubes starting at 35 millimeter diameter. That's the roller shutter tube where the shutter gets rolled up on. And Becker has been known for quite a few years now to have a very, very smart and intelligent installation process. And we have automatic end limit detection. So if your roller shutter has a mechanical limit on top and can't roll up into your shutter box, you just have to drive up all the way, down all the way, and the drive automatically detects the end limits and is set up. The drive cable is a pluggable drive cable that can be uninstalled just using a normal screwdriver, and there's not even a screw, there's just a small notch you have to push in, and then you can retract the cable from the drive, even in very confined environments, say installed in the shutter box. And of course, all our drives feature a sensitive obstacle detection as compared to other companies who realize obstacle detection by surveying the torque the motor needs to apply. In this case, that's very unsensitive, so you have to apply quite a bit of pressure before detecting an obstacle, and we solve this in a different way, so we can actually detect very sensitive. As soon as the shutter stops, a couple of seconds later, the drive will detect that and react. We have a very accurate drive positioning and feedback, so we can drive to certain angles in steps as small as 1 degree. We do not have to do the time referencing, so our drives automatically know all the time exactly where they're positioned. And it's not the usual guessing game you have with an external actuator, where you have to measure the time the drive takes to drive up and down, and then estimate the position based on the time the relays have been switched on or off. So this drive really knows where it's located at. And this also gives us the possibility to program 2 freely adjustable intermediate positions, let's say for sun protection and for ventilation. And I'll come back to that later. Also, you do not have to have physical access to the device for the linking process. You just need to have control over the power supply. So you just switch on the fuse and can then connect to the drive. I'll go ahead and tell a bit more about installation and wiring. And now we're coming to the real advantage of this drive. We do not need a special connection, so we do not need to connect up and down wiring to the drive. We only require mains, which is the N, the L, and the PE. So just the normal power supply you'll find at any power socket. And as I mentioned before, the detachable drive cable also adds a bit of comfort. I've just created a small schematic showing the usual process of connecting roller shutters today using EnOcean actuators. That's the way we've encountered in many, many installations. Also very, very common in prefabricated houses. So you have to run a 4 or 5 wire cable from each drive to the junction box where the actuator is located, which means we are increasing the number of wires we have to run in the prefabricated house sector. We also increase the number of connectors we have to put between the walls. And also we are amplifying the distance that the push buttons or the window handles have to travel to get to the actuator, to the receiver. Now, if we compare that with the electric wiring, the electric connection we would find at the N01, you just have to have a single power supply somewhere near the drives. You can run the wire from one motor to another. And also we shorten immensely the distance that the push buttons have to cover using their radio signals and the window handles, because they will directly connect to the drive and evade any interferences or distance problematics. As I said, just to the nearest source of mains, and that's about it. The installation process being done, we now go to the linking process, and there's a couple of ways to do that. First of all, I mentioned before, you just power up the drive. The drive confirms the correct electrical connections with a short clacking sound when it's opening the brake. So as soon as you turn on your power supply, you'll already get notified whether or not the connection has correctly been done. And just after that, in a period of 3 minutes, you just need to double tap on any EnOcean push button, be it energy harvesting push buttons, battery powered or whatsoever. Just double tap on the button, and this links or unlinks the remote control and the drive. And we are even able to set the end limits without any additional tools. So imagine there is no mechanical limit on top, and you need to program a certain point as a point of reference. You can even do that using the standard EnOcean push button that you will find in any installation. There's no need for external tools, even though there is availability for those who go into production with larger numbers. There is a wired installation sets available to set the end limits already at production. Another point that we were very eager to implement is the remote commissioning. Marcus mentioned before that there is a very easy way to set up devices, to link devices, and this is also featured in all our EnOcean products, meaning you can do your configuration already during the planning phase. You can, without even connecting the motor, connect push buttons, window handles, smoke detectors with the drive. And then as soon as you get on site, you just power up the drive, you remote commission all your setups and configurations using remote commissioning recom. And this is also ideal for system integrators or prefabricated houses, because you can do all your planning at home, and when you're arriving at the installation site, you just transmit the programmed data. I've also featured a screenshot of one of those configuration tools. This is the Becker config tool, but for those of you who are already using remote commissioning, all our drives are also implemented in the Jaeger Direct Opus installation tool. So if you're already using that, you can just add our N01 motors in this configurator and commission them using the Opus tool. Now let's get to the proposition of this presentation, added comfort and security. First of all, with everybody working from home nowadays in this pandemic times, we've had a surge in the need for glare evasion and sun protection, because when you're working from home, the last thing you want is the sun shining on your laptop display, making it impossible for you to work properly from home. So this is a very large portion of comfort that you'd expect nowadays from a motorized solution. And we can automate your sun protection to evade heating or cooling cost. And as I said, use, for example, the intermediate positions to evade glare effects. Those intermediate positions are really easily accessed as soon as you have your EnOcean push button connected and you have your intermediate positions programmed. You just double tap in the up or downwards direction, which makes the drive going to go to the exact position you've programmed. And also, all our drives have a feature for added security, which is as soon as you're using anti-lift devices or rigid spring connectors on your roller shutter, the drive is able to automatically detect those during installation and will automatically augment the amount of torque it applies as soon as you get to the lower end limit, making sure that the roller shutter is firmly pressed on the windowsill and there is no problem, there's no possibility to get any mechanical tool underneath to try to lift up the device. And also in conjunction with a smart home interface, you can also detect whether or not a window has been open for a larger period of time and automatically drive down the roller shutter to close that entry point for potential intruders. What more do you get? First of all, I've already mentioned we have a real position feedback, no calculated percentage, which means if you are encountering an obstacle in your drive path, you'll get notified, you get the information that the drive has been blocked, and you will get the exact percentage position where the drive is situated in that very moment. Imagine you left a flower pot underneath your window or a chair underneath your terrace door. The drive will automatically detect that obstacle and reverse a little bit back up, so you can easier take away the obstacle and then drive down again. Also, you'll get notified about the exact position it's situated, so you can estimate roughly where the obstacle occurred, whether it was in close proximity to the lower end limit or just right up top. We can manage direct connection to other EnOcean devices without the central device. I've already mentioned that before. There's no need for a smart home gateway or something to use smart functions. And of course, all our products support level 1 or 2 repeating to amplify the range of your EnOcean network. We can react smartly to integrated window contacts and handles, and of course smoke detectors. Let me give you a short example, say the lockout evasion or the automatic ventilation function. If you have a window handle connected to your motor, and imagine you're talking about your bedroom roller shutter, and you switch your window handle to the ventilation position, so upwards, and open your window, the drive will automatically open a little bit to the programmed ventilation position to make airflow easier during ventilation. So if you want to just let in a bit of air in your bedroom, you can do this by just flicking the window handle to the ventilation position. And as soon as you close it back up, the drive will go all the way down to its programmed position again. Also, you can use window handles, let's say, for terrace doors. So if you are sitting outside with your friends having a nice barbecue, like before Corona and hopefully soon after, as long as your window handle is in open position, the drive will evade any downwards movement, so you can't lock yourself out even though your window is open and your shutter closes right in front of you. So this is impossible using the window handle because that will evade a downwards movement. The auto detection of the anti-lift devices we've already talked about. We are the first ones in the world to have a radio roller shutter motor that is Apple HomeKit certified. In this case, in combination with the Opus Smart Home Gateway. And you can completely control your roller shutter using your home application on your iOS device. As I said, in combination with the Open Smart Home Gateway. I've also talked about Jäger Direct and Opus before, which means if you are a particular customer and not a professional customer, as we only do business with professional customers, all our drives are available at Jäger Direct, and you can including already commissioned devices, meaning you can get your drive completely set up by Jäger Direct, and it will come in a pre-labeled box, and you just have to install it where you've set up in the configuration tool. Which EnOcean devices can I connect to my drive? Well, I have already mentioned push buttons, energy harvesting or battery powered. We have window contacts and window handles, smoke detectors, and central control devices. So talking about smoke detectors, if you connect your smoke detector directly to your N01 drive, in a case of an emergency, the drives will all automatically drive up and clear your escape path, say at a window or a terrace door. So this adds a large amount of safety and security to living rooms, bedrooms, wherever escape routes are necessary and available. If there is a need to know more about the EEP profiles, the EnOcean enrollment profiles, I can comment on that later in the Q&A session if you want. And yeah. I've also integrated a short cost comparison just to have a short idea about the price. We are using customer prices, including VAT, for this comparison. And we've estimated a normal electronic drive, say a Becker wired drive, is around 150 euros and customer price. A regular EnOcean actuator would be around 50 euros, and we've estimated around 30 euros for wiring to the junction box. If you compare that to our motor, we have a drive at roughly about 200 euros and customer price, and all you need in addition is the wiring from the nearest power source at around 10 euros. So let me conclude. What are you getting? The N01 drive allows you to use distinctive features that vary from the normal actuator mode at roughly the same price or even lower, at much less complicated wiring. As I've mentioned before, say for prefabricated house producers, this is a large advantage. And as I've mentioned before, they are very easy to be set up and maintained. And we offer, of course, a large training capability. If you are interested in that, please come back to me later or contact Marcus, and we can make out, we can set up a date in the future where we can look further into that. And I would now like to invite Marcus back for our Q&A session. Please feel free to write down your questions and we'll try to answer as much as we can. If any questions get left over and can't be answered in this session, we'll try and get back to you via email, and it will be organized and done by Marcus and the EnOcean Association. So I give my word to Marcus now. Thank you for your patience, and it's been a pleasure.
Okay, so thank you, Mike. So it was a very interesting presentation. So yes, as Mike was saying, we are now ready to receive your questions, and I'm looking here in the questions section, and yes, there's already the first questions coming in. So there's specifically one question, Mike, on the teach-in. So how can you make sure that the correct switch module is assigned to the correct shutter drive?
You can verify that in two ways. First of all, if you have the possibility to connect or disconnect each drive individually, it doesn't pose a problem, because as soon as you switch on the power and you connect the first device, the drive automatically leaves its linking mode, and you will not interfere with additional motors that you try to program. And also there is the possibility, I've not mentioned that before, the motor has a little switch on its motor head. I will just show that slide once more. You can see there is a little switch on the left-hand side. The right-hand side is to change the drive rotation, and the left switch is to activate or deactivate the linking process, meaning you can individually set each drive to linking mode, but then you will need physical access to the drive.
Okay, so thanks for that. Then there is another question coming in also. So the question is, can the N01 drive be used in roller blinds as well as in roller shutters?
Yes, of course. The drive setup is meant for roller shutter, but of course, as it's just an upward and downwards movement, it can also be used in roller blinds. The only problem you might be facing if you're using a roller blind on the outside and you are getting wind effects, the drive might detect obstacles when a gust of wind, for example, shortly blocks the roller blind. For interior use, I don't see any problem at all. And I think we are even able to connect wind sensors directly to the drive.
Okay, so thank you. So, and then I guess there's more and more questions coming in, but I think we need to look at the time. So let's take one last question. And again, yeah, just in case there is some questions left over, we will then follow up with you by email. So the question here, I think, which many are interested is which of the known gateways are supporting your N01 drive now today?
Mm-hmm. I've already mentioned before the Jaeger Direct Smart Home Gateway. Then there is the Digital Concepts Business Gateway, that's for larger installations. And also we support the Mediola Gateway, which is quite well sold all over Europe, and many of you might know that. And that also works really well.
Okay, so thank you. And allow me one more, because there's a question on the availability. You said, of course, you are it's widely available. Specifically, I get the question about availability in the Italian market. I don't know if you can comment on that.
Yes, of course. We have a network of dependencies and partners all over Europe, and we also have a partner in Italy, in Bressanone, in northern Italy, Becker Motori. Then there is the availability to get those motors using our sales partners in Italy, for example. And if you are eager to find out for your country, there is our website, www.becker-antriebe.com, where you can find a website in your country's language. And you can also detect your professional sales representatives for that area. And in most countries, even our sales partners in that very country.
Okay, excellent. So, okay, great. So we took one more. So yeah, we are running already late. We have 5 minutes over time. So again, thanks, Mike, for your help, for your support, for the excellent presentation. And again, to the audience, we will collect your questions and then follow up via email. Let me just maybe the last 2 slides. Yes, so an outlook to the next webinar session, which will be held on the 22nd of April. At that time, we will be partnering with the Thing IT to talk about the retrofit approach for the digital workspace management. Of course, also this is an interesting topic, so you're invited to join us for that next session as well. And as a last slide, we will show you just the contact details again. So if you want to approach either Mike or myself directly, here you can find the slides. There will be the contact details. I mean, there will be a replay available also on YouTube of the entire webinar in case you have missed a part or a section. And again, just feel free to approach us if you have any further questions which you haven't been able to raise during this webinar presentation. So again, thank you, Mike, for your presentation. Thank you for your support. Thank you to the audience, and looking forward to meet you next time during our next webinar session.